This is how you drive on the limit in the rain at Spa. Here's an analysis of an ultra-fast lap driven by one of our legendary coaches, Kane Halliburton. This is a free sample lesson from the Motor Racing Academy membership. You can get 1 free month of the membership by getting my online course, The Motor Racing Checklist. Enjoy!
Welcome to Challenge 18 with the Ferrari at Spa. This is a very popular combo, and if you ever plan on doing a 24-hour event at Spa, I can guarantee that it's going to rain and you're going to need to be very good at this combo. Turn 1, braking, avoiding the rubber line. Here, most people will brake around this area and they will lay a lot of rubber. The rubber levels are not on off, so you're gonna have a lot here, but then it's gonna have less and less and less and less and less and less. So here you have the least amount of rubber, but you're just not having a very good line. Here you have, say, medium amount of rubber, and the ideal may be sweet spot, and here you have way too much rubber, so the car never even stops. So what we're gonna do is to try to find a good spot where we're slowing down the car just enough while still having a decent line for this corner. And then we're going to turn in on the inside of the rubber. You see there's a lot of rubber here on the outside. We're kind of turning in on the inside, still avoiding the rubber until the critical moment where we can't avoid it at all, which is more or less at this middle on the small puddle. It's not too bad of a puddle here. And also even the curb here, which is not ideal in the rain because it's very, very slippery. But at some point we were going to have to cross this anyways. So what Kane decides to do here is to stay on the inside of the rubber line instead of trying to do some of the traditional lines in the rain, which is going on the outside of the rain line and trying to get a better exit. But he finds more time here by just staying on the inside for as long as he can, and then just overdriving the car, getting as much rotation as possible here while getting lots of steering. The car is understeering, but he's just trying to get as much rotation as he can, and then back on power quite quickly coming back. You see, as soon as he gets back on power here, Look at the timing. He gets back on power, and he's already now coming back with the steering. Boom. And he quickly goes back from this to this, and now he's coming back a little bit more slowly, and then he goes fast again, pretty much in a straight line, and trying to get the power down as much as possible. Definitely not using this area here because it is way too slippery. And also remember that even though we are in the rain, we still have to consider all the elevation changes that we generally do more in the dry. So right here, we have this huge compression. So there's a lot of, well, not a lot of grip difference because it's still wet, but we have more grip here, and then we're gonna have a lot less grip on the exit of that. So we have a compression, snap, decompression. So the car compresses, and then as soon as we get back on power, now the car is on a slippery part. So we get back on power, very careful, pretty much never going to straight 100% until the car is completely straight. As you can see here, unwinding, little bit of oversteer. He's still not flat, Finally now, when the car is completely straight, we reach 100% throttle. Eau Rouge becomes a corner. So now we're going to slow down a little bit. We're gonna use that 1% brakes, get the car to point, use as much as possible of this left area. We definitely want to use it. Right now we are using the curb. The curb is going to be very slippery. So the idea is to try to go as straight as possible on top of it, so that you see as soon as you get on the curb, the car ceases to turn. It's pretty much going straight, even though the steering is kind of going a little bit to the left. And then right now we're aiming to be on the left of the rubber line. So Kane goes, he turns right, but he already is with the outside tires on the outside part of the line. And now he's going to be patiently getting the car to rotate as much as possible, getting on power. And then we are going to get on the trickiest part because we are going on top of the curb and the puddle. So there is absolutely zero grip here. The car will go straight regardless of what you want. So what he is doing here, very important, very, very, very important. He's planning to turn left so that by the time he hits the curb, the car has a set path. Because remember, as soon as you touch this, the car is going straight. So the line that you have before you touch it will determine where you end up landing after it. So that is why he's going left here, so that the line, by the time he hits it, is now going straight. It's enough for him to turn a little bit after he gets over the curb part and is still able to stay on the inside while avoiding this whole thing here. This is ice. As soon as you get here, you lose a lot of time, or you can even spin and crash. So again, a little bit of trail braking here. Go as much to the left as possible. The car is gonna slide here. It's not gonna want to turn. Car slides, and then after that, you aim to stay with the left tires on the left side of the dry line. And then he ends up actually having the whole car here because the car just slides a little bit. And then he has the whole car on the outside. He turns right. And now at some point, he will want to change direction before he hits the puddle, before he hits the curb, because by the time he hits there, the car will go straight. So left, straight, sliding. And then after the curb is over, he had a little bit of steering. So the car oversteers immediately. And then he corrects it. And that is all good. As you can see, pretty tricky part. Requires a lot of timing. As soon as you get it right, it is extremely satisfying. Then we go to the comb, traditional wet line, braking on the inside, avoiding the curb, avoiding the dry line. So right here, generally we use all this whole curb here, but we have to avoid it at all costs. Stay where we have the most grip, avoiding the rubber. Then what he's going to do, he's going to turn in. There's a lot less grip here because he's turning on top of the dry line. So the car will go through the ice. And then after that, he finds himself on the outside. It's funny, you can see here lots of understeer. He's turning, the car is it's not doing anything. But as soon as he lands right now, boom, it's magic. As soon as he gets out of the dry line into the wet line, into the part without rubber, the car just magically starts turning. And it's very important for you to learn to feel these differences. How the car slides here, but it then had lots of grip here. So car slides, then hits the grippy part. And now, again, he's gonna have to cross that ice again. He goes to the outside, he turns, the car is sliding a little bit. He's trying to stay as much to the inside as possible here. He's actually sacrificing having the inside tires on the puddle and having the outside tires on the not rubbered part where he gets more grip. And then he's loading the tires. He's loading as soon as you turn. Remember, as soon as you turn left, the weight goes to the outside tires, right? So because the weight is on the outside tires, these here on top of the puddle, kind of fine because these are getting most of the load and they are on the good part of the track that is not sliding as much. Then he crosses that line again all the way to the outside. He starts turning in, aiming to be on the outside of the dry line. And then definitely avoiding this curb. A little bit of sliding here, crossing that dry line again. Then he goes into Bruxelles. We're gonna have a similar approach. We're gonna brake on the inside, very much on the inside. Here, it's kind of difficult to avoid the sliding part because this is a double apex and the actual dry line is a diagonal braking towards the inside. Because remember, we hit the inside here, we go wide, and then we go back on the dry line. So even the wet line is going to be very difficult to avoid the rubber part. So he brakes on the inside, lets the car go wide, very wide, and then as wide as possible, because remember, the dry line is a double apex, so the cars naturally go to the outside. There's going to be a lot of rubber around here, and then he tries to cross back to the inside, never actually reaches the second apex just because that is even more rubbered. So he stays on the outside, stays on the outside, stays on the outside, and now he's definitely going to avoid this curb here because that is total ice. And then very, very careful trail braking because unavoidably he is on the dry rubbered line. And because of that, the car is going to have zero grip. He tries to avoid the inside again, a little bit of puddle, even more rubber. And then gets back on power, avoiding the curb definitely. And we start to see a pattern. You try to stay on the inside. You avoid the dry line under braking because that's where you need most of the grip. And then at some point, you're going to have to cross the dry line, crossing the rubber part, planning your line, knowing that the grip is going to be off for a fraction of a second and then it's going to come back. So Pujon, same thing, braking on the inside, crossing the dry line, a little bit on the outside, car grips a lot. Again, boom, as soon as it grips, back on power, stay on the inside, avoid the curb, and then he stays totally on the outside here. There's so much rubber, it's so slippery, especially at high speeds, and he prefers to do this line. And then he uses a little bit of the outside here. Right here, you can see that how easy it is to lose the car because he is crossing the dry line. He's actually right on top of the dry line right now. And then we have exactly the same thing. Braking on the inside, turning in, meeting the dry line. The car is going to slide a little bit. And then it naturally falls to the middle of the track where you have a little bit more grip because of less rubber. Back to the inside. Now he's obsessing about bringing the car as much as possible to the right because he wants to benefit from this here. So he wants to get the car on the total outside to the left-hander so that he can use that non-rubbered line. So he's forcing the car all the way to the outside here, all the way to the right. And then he's trying to benefit by getting as much minimum speed as possible on this left-hander by staying to the right. Now he's going to cross the dry line. The car slides a little bit. Then he gets back to the next corner. Right here, he chooses to stay on the outside. Most likely because there's not so much deceleration, so he's not braking that hard. The car is sliding. Now he's going to try to stay on the outside on the mid-corner part, avoiding the puddle on the inside, avoid the rubber part. Car slides a lot, correct, and then he stays on this area to avoid the rubber area, to avoid the curb. And then here, he is going to go straight away to the outside to get the best exit possible because there is a long straight after and there is absolutely zero grip because of the puddles, because of the rubber. So he stays on the outside here, 1% braking, getting the car to rotate, then back on power, and car is going to slide at some point because he's going to cross the dry line right now. Crosses the dry line, survives, goes straight, and now just flat out all the way to Blanchimont. Then a little bit of braking here on this part where you generally don't expect to brake at all. Just a little bit. And then preparing Blanchimont. He is using all the track on entry. He's using just a little bit of braking. And then he's trying to use the outside. And then crossing the car back, avoiding the dry line at all costs. And then a little bit of sliding, as always, on the part where he meets the rubber of the traditional line. You see a pattern here. So whenever he's trying to maximize mid-corner speed in these long corners, he sacrifices the grip on entry by staying on the dry line and using all the track on entry, because he wants to get on the outside here as early as possible. That is what he's doing. He's trying to get to the outside as early as he can so that he can carry the most speed and continue to benefit that speed. He did the same thing on this corner here. So he did use all the track, definitely not the curb, because the curb is way too much. That's insta spin. So he's using all the track here because he wants to get on this outside part as early as possible. If you try to get more grip on the braking, you have to cross that and you end up not really getting that wide line mid-corner. So he prefers to cross the non-grip area early in some corners to maximize the minimum speed on mid-corner. Then we head into the last corner. Similar approach, just not using the dry line on the braking, especially on this one because there's a long hard braking zone. So whenever you need that grip, you have to avoid using the dry rubber line because the car will definitely just not stop. So hard braking zone to the bus stop, definitely braking away from the rubber area, and then turning in here. You can kind of try to not use the rubber area, but it's just such a longer distance that it's just not worth it. So what Kane is doing here is just going through the inside, going through the puddle, going through the curb, just to try to straight line as much as possible and cut this distance. There's going to be a very, very bad grip, but it's going to be worth it. And then he's going all the way to the outside here, trying to cut the puddle on the inside, trying to get as much rotation as possible here, just so he doesn't understeer off into this green area, because that is going to be total ice. And then getting back on power, not a lot of grip, almost no grip right here. And then avoiding this. He's definitely not using this curb. It looks like he is, but he's not. And then back on power when the car is fully straight only. And that is the lap. If you're a racing driver and you want to reach an advanced level, there's a faster and easier way to become competitive. I've gone from this to this in 5 years. Now, we've created the perfect free driver development guide to help you understand the right order of racing skills to develop if you want to become a competitive driver as quickly as possible. This guide was made after 3,000 hours of combined high-level coaching.